development. What I want to say at the beginning, I want to give a little bit of credit to someone, and that's Doris Dow, who was the person that started our outreach and education program at the Lunar Science Institute. She has moved on and is now our associate director, but really so much of what we do is really ought to be credited to her for starting. So anyway. The next talk then is going to be given by two people, actually. It's going to be entitled Citizen Science and Professional Development. It's going to be given by our own Survey staffer, Brian Day. And Brian is the Director of Citizen Science and Communication. Thank you. We had a recent title change. So, he is going to share the virtual stage with Noah Petro, who is a research scientist at Goddard Space Flight Center, and Noah is one of the founders of the Next Generation Lunar Scientists and Explorers group. So, with that, Brian, I will move out of your way and go for it.
We will be starting out with Noah Petro at Goddard Space Flight Center.
Okay, yeah, great. Thanks, Brian. Thanks, Greg, for the kind introduction. And yeah, so we each divided the 15 minutes that are allotted to us into 5-minute equal or 7.5-minute equal time. So it's up to me to stay on time for you, Brian, and I'll definitely try to do that. Thank you all for the opportunity to speak a little bit about some of the next generation lunar scientists and engineers efforts that have been going on really since the beginning of the NLSI. I remember very vividly sitting in the tent under the shadow of the big blimp building out there, talking to Jake Bleacher, thinking, we really should do something. This is a unique opportunity in time where every year lunar scientists, and particularly young lunar scientists, are going to be getting together. We should do something about that and make sure that we capitalize on the fact that we can have everybody together and do something that'll help build a community. We felt at the time, and still do, that it's very important for the people who are early in their careers to not only interact with each other, but senior members of the community. We wanted to develop the early career community so that we could be better suited in the future. And we still feel that to be the case, that whenever the call comes out that we'll be going back to the moon, that this lunar science community will be well suited to do that as best as possible. So a few of us got together, wrote a proposal through the EPOS program, Opportunities for Education, Public Outreach in Earth and Space Sciences. We received tremendous support from the NLSI, hosting our events prior to each of the past science forums, lunar science forums. What we wanted to do was to really provide opportunities for this early career community to network with one another, network with senior members of the community, and to become, to develop professionally. Early on, we sort of recognized that there were several places that we could probably make an impact in early career students, postdocs, lives or careers. And so our very first official event was essentially just a meeting to share our science with one another. And we recognized very early on that there were many things that the community really wanted to learn about, whether it was communicating with students in a classroom, communicating with the public, communicating with the media. How do you write a proposal? What's the proposal process? How do you find jobs? And how do you develop scientific collaborations? Those were all identified very early on through a survey of the members to basically identify what we wanted to do. It was a good lesson in sort of building up a community and finding out what the community actually needs. So some of the hallmarks of what the Next Gen group has done is afford two real primary things outside of just our general meetings, and that's one is having opportunities for essentially networking, whether it's scientific or personal networking amongst peer groups, members of the Next Generation group, or also through senior members, established members of the community. There's the slide you'll see is of the first appearance of Bill Bakke you'll have over the next 3 days. And he came a few years ago, and many other members of the established members of the community have come to talk to us about their career paths, how they got from point A to point B, tips and tricks, lessons learned, things like that. And we've all found that to be very useful because quite often as a grad student or early in your career, it's somewhat overwhelming to think, how am I going to get from this point to being established in the community? And so oftentimes we found it very useful to get insights and input into what people had actually done to get to where they are today. And really, I mean, it was these face-to-face meetings, and not to throw any shade on virtual meetings, but it was the face-to-face meetings that really were quite efficient and helping develop this community. So over the past 4 years, we've held these workshops prior to the forum. This year, with the virtual aspect, we were able to hold a virtual proposal writing workshop about a month ago on June 26th. Both Michael New and Kurt Niebuhr joined us from NASA headquarters. As you might recall, at this past year's Lunar Planetary Science Conference, they were unable to attend to hold their standard Sunday prior proposal writing workshop. And so this created sort of a void, and we felt that this was a good opportunity this year to have them give their workshop online. The response from the community was fairly overwhelming. We had 158 registrants, which was not required for attendance to the workshop, but we had 158 people sign up. At the peak during the actual workshop itself, we had 121 logins, and we know that there were several hubs all across the country with multiple people. So this had quite a tremendous amount of reach, and certainly far more reach than just what the face-to-face meeting at the LPSC would have had. I would say that as opposed to what we've done in the past with face-to-face meetings, this workshop this year was open to everyone. Anyone could log in. I know of not only grad students and postdocs who signed in, but senior members of the community who logged in, if only not only to see what was talked about, but also just to participate with other students. So in my mind, that was tremendously successful, and given the limitations that we're under right now, probably the best thing that we could do to get people exposed to this type of workshop. Just some highlights from what we did there is that for as a follow-up to the workshop, we had a survey from the respondents. We had about a third recognize themselves as being postdocs, a third being grad students, and or greater than 5 years from their PhD, and about a third other. So that covers the gamut from people who have been established in the community for a long time or whatever. Largely, the audience was the science community. That's not surprising. This was an RNA proposal discussion, so we attracted mostly scientists. Interestingly, of the respondents to the survey, 100% said they would attend another virtual workshop. And apart from some minor technical glitches early on, I think the online workshop worked well. And certainly after events like this today, over the next couple of days, we'll all be better attuned to participating in the future. Just a couple of comments that we had. Everybody was more or less fairly positive about it. I think the hard thing is coming up with a workshop that's going to be engaging for everybody. I certainly was pleased with the content and how it was pitched to the community of mostly early career scientists. I would notice that one of the comments was, I found it helpful to be reassured that proposal writing is a skill to learn similar to bicycle riding. Notice they didn't say falling off a bicycle. One of the problems that we have had in the past, or one of the things that we've done in the past are these social networking opportunities. Obviously, being virtual, that was difficult. We did have an evening event using Adobe Connect. We had 7 participants. I find it great that so many people actually decided to cough up an hour of their evening to participate. It doesn't replace the face-to-face meetings, but I think certainly suited our needs just fine. And then just a last slide before I pass the baton to Brian. What are our future plans? Obviously, NLSI is evolving. Survey is coming. We have a next generation of leaders. Both Laura and I are getting less next generation and more mid-generation. So we have a number of people who have volunteered to stand up and lead the charge going forward. Pending the EPOS program, we certainly be interested in pursuing other funding opportunities. Survey has stood beside us or behind us for at this present time, and I look forward to working with them in the future. And as I said before, virtual workshops are good, but to a point. Constantly in the proposal writing workshop, it was hammered home the importance of face-to-face meetings and really becoming acquainted with the community. And so I certainly hope that we have that opportunity going forward in the future. At this point, I'm going to pass the ball to Brian, and thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Noah. Noah has described a very exciting program of professional development for the formal science community. I need to advance my slides here.
Yeah, you can do it that way.
It's not advancing. So.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, there you go.
So we're today going to take a look at also addressing another community, the informal science community. This is a very important community, and it can be engaged and developed through programs of citizen science. We'll take a look today at specifically the citizen science program associated with the upcoming LIDE mission. Now, there's some very good reasons to include citizen science in your missions. There have been opportunities to crowdsource large amounts of data. That's been very successful. There have been opportunities to take advantage of special circumstances, having people in the right place at the right time. There have even been opportunities to provide mission operation support, as was the case in the LCROSS mission with the Goldstone Apple Valley Radio Telescope program. In the case of LADI, we're focusing on providing useful background science data. Now, as a recap to the presentation Rick gave, LADI is scheduled to launch this September. It is going to characterize the composition and structure of the lunar atmosphere and how those change over time. It's also going to look at the size, charge, and spatial distribution of dust that may be lofted into the lunar sky. Now, we understand that meteoroid impacts may be a major source for both lunar atmosphere and lofted lunar dust. But we're not sure just where meteoroid impacts fall amongst the major sources. Fortunately, meteoroid impacts can be observed from here on Earth as flashes, and they are best characterized and recorded in telescopes with apertures of 8 to 14 inches. Now, there are quite a few of those telescopes in the possession of amateur astronomers and schools. And so what we're looking to do is have a network of observers, ground-based observers, looking for these impact flashes during the course of the LADI mission so that we can correlate impact events with changes that LADI's instruments see in the structure and composition of the lunar atmosphere. The requirements, the technical requirements for the systems here on Earth are actually very modest. 8 to 14 inch aperture telescopes. The cameras involved are actually quite simple. Rather than a very expensive CCD camera, we're looking at $350 surveillance cameras. The image is digitized. We need to have a timestamp included in the signal, and then it is recorded to a computer. This is a sample schematic of a system for doing this. Again, this is equipment that is commonly in possession by amateur astronomers in schools. Here's an example of an impact flash actually detected by George Varos, an amateur astronomer. You can see on the bottom right of this loop a flash from probably about a walnut-sized impactor. Now, this is great if you happen to have an 8 to 14 inch telescope, but there are a lot of people out there who want to participate but don't. But since the majority of the impactors hitting the surface of the moon are very small, on the order of a 1 micron diameter, we'd never see a flash like that from here on Earth. But because small debris can become very evident when it encounters the Earth atmosphere, and because the Earth and Moon travel together through space encountering these streams of debris, meteor counting here on Earth can help us characterize what is happening on the surface of the Moon. So again, during the LADI mission, we are planning to organize large numbers of meteor counters here on Earth. And as is the case for almost everything these days, there's even an app for that. So the Meteoroid Environment Office at NASA's Marshall Space Flight Center has come out with this app. Runs on your smartphone. You tap the screen to indicate that you've seen a meteor. So you go out, you have your viewing session, your smartphone knows where you are, it knows what time it is, and as you tap the screen, it records your meteor. At the end of your observing session, it sends this information to NASA. So again, through these programs, we are going to be able to engage a citizen science community that is very diverse, from sophisticated amateur astronomers, from university and college observatories, to pretty much anyone who is interested in being a part of our next mission to the moon.
Thank you very much, Brian. Yeah, wonderful. So we'd like to open this for any questions for either Noah or Brian. I want to make a comment as well, and I remember, Noah, I think you'll probably remember this as well, a conversation that you and I and Jake and Laura all had at the very first Lunar Science Forum when you guys were telling me about this idea you had with next generation lunar scientists and explorers. And I remember being so moved by what you did that I said, you know what, as long as we're around, we're going to support this. And we have changed our institute's name, but I'm looking over at Yvonne right now, and I think that we can say CERVI will continue to support this as long as you guys continue to do this. It's just wonderful what you're doing. So
we did have a question, Brian. How can we get involved in the NGLSE program, and is it also directed at undergrads?
So I'll handle that. I think that's for me. But thank you. Yeah. So and I actually chatted with Crystal using the connected chat. But yeah, the next gen effort is open to anybody who's interested. We very purposely tried not to produce a very rigorous delineation of who should and shouldn't participate. It's one of those things you kind of know if you should or shouldn't. So it's certainly open to undergrads, certainly undergrad participation, and getting involved, contact me, and then I'll send you to the next generation leaders that I listed on my slide there. And working all together, we'll continue to hopefully help build the community. And as Clive asked last year, going forward with CERVI, obviously my heart falls with trying to help the lunar science community develop, and I'm looking forward to working with whoever wants to participate, but and certainly going to be open to anybody and everyone, but don't be surprised if there's a little bit of favoritism, just a little bit of favoritism that gets played, but not that much. And the next question is from Clive Neal.
Yes, and so I'll go ahead. I'm sorry, mic off. I'll go ahead and read that. Meteoroid impact flash monitoring will be critical for the Lunar Geophysical Network mission, New Frontiers, that will heavily rely on this type of citizen science. It is a way to get schools involved. Can you explain how you're passing the baton in next generation leadership in this as this excellent effort continues? This excellent effort continues, excuse me.
I'll let Brian handle the first question.
Yeah.
Good. So right now we're in the process of putting together essentially an international scope of observers for meteoroid detection. We've just recently had Barakat Observatory in Israel join, and we have also observers in Italy that have just joined up. But this is not a brand new program. This is something that is instituted as part of a program instituted by NASA's Meteoroid Environment Office and the Association of Lunar and Planetary Observers. So what we are doing here is we are growing an existing program. And so we're hoping to see that through the LADI mission, we will develop this community of observers, and they will be better than able to take on the challenges of future missions.
Great. And Noah, would you like to take the second part of that?
Yeah, there's a second part from Clive, and then Bill asked a question as well, and then I have a follow-up question that I received via Twitter. So the first thing is passing the baton. So as I listed in the talk, there's a number of people who've sort of stood up and said, yeah, I really want to help this move forward. And basically, Laura and I are going to help them figure out how to find money to support their times. That's a very important thing. But also to start leading the organization of these yearly events and working with the CERVI team. We hope that we can continue to hold our in-person meetings before the CERVI meeting next July, I take it, or whenever it's going to happen. And we'll sort of let them help lead the organization and identification of topics and finding speakers. I think Laura and I are happy to continue to help, but in a more reduced role. So the baton pass is going to be a gradual transition, hopefully. Bill asked whether or not any students have said the workshops have helped them personally. Personally and professionally, I'd say so, and I encourage anybody who's listening who has participated to either chime in on the chat or just send Bill a personal email. No, don't do that, but I can say just through face-to-face communication, and certainly we have some post-meeting surveys that reinforce the idea that they have found it very useful with a proposal writing workshop just to learn how the process goes. It's a bit of a black box for a lot of people starting in their career. Just opening that box a little bit to peer inside is very useful. And so, yeah, that's been, I think the feedback that I've received has shown that it's been very useful in each of the different topics we've addressed, whether it's interacting with scientists. I can actually relate, Bill Botke in his presentation to our group shared some ideas of how to foster ideas, and I know more than one person has come up to me and said that they've started their crazy idea notebook that Bill talked about. So I take that as a sign of success. And one last thing, I did get a question from the Washington University crowd. I am wearing khaki pants today that were ironed. There was a question of whether or not I was wearing full pants or shorts today. Full pants. So not much information, but I haven't had lunch yet, so we need to wrap it up.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for that enlightening comment, Noah. Actually, this last one might be helpful, and then after that, we'll take any questions via chat. Is there a website or some other way to collaborate potential impacts with other teams that are doing this? So,
yes, absolutely. In terms of the Meteoroid Impact Observation Campaign, we're doing that in conjunction with the Association of Lunar and Planetary Observers, that's ALPO, and they have actually a Lunar Meteoroid Impact Observation section. So if you go to their website, you'll see this area that is coordinated by Brian Kudnick of the ALPO. They also have a Yahoo group for Lunar Meteoroid Impact Observations. So that is an area for discussions, comparing techniques. One of the things we're talking about also is having one of our workshops without walls coming up for people who are involved. So the Institute here has sponsored a number of workshops without walls before. It's a virtual event, very similar to what we're doing today, but it will allow interested people to come together, learn from the experts, and also exchange questions so that you'll be ready to participate in the science of this mission. Keep an eye on lunarscience.nasa.gov, and we'll have more information for you on that upcoming workshop.
Well, thanks again very much, Brian, and thanks, Noah. Really appreciate it.